excited to have you with us and tuning in here at Tennessee Wesleyan. I have many of my esteemed colleagues here. I'm Harley Knowles, president of Tennessee Wesleyan. We're thrilled to have you here and excited about your son or daughter, or perhaps both, joining our university this coming fall. We want to provide you a bit of an update on our plans to be ready for all the students that are coming in just a few short days. Like I said, we're thrilled that you've picked Tennessee Wesleyan, and we picked your son or daughter right back. So we're thrilled that they'll be with us. Let's go ahead and do some introductions, and then we'll get on with some questions and a little bit of discussion for you. And I'll let my colleagues go ahead and introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Lacey Weiss. I'm the Associate Vice President for Student Financial Services.
Good evening. I'm Gail Harris, Vice President for Financial Affairs.
My name is Grant Wilhite. I'm the Vice President for Academic Affairs.
I'm Scott Mashburn, Vice President for Student Life.
Hello, Donnie Mayfield, Director of Athletics.
Well, terrific. Thank you, esteemed colleagues. We have a lot of brain power in the room. We've been very busy since March when all of our classes went online, and like many of the high schools went online or some variation of that. So we are really excited, and I can't stress that enough, to have students joining us back physically. And so let's go ahead and go right to the questions. One of the first questions have to do with testing, and the whole nation is asking questions about testing, and we're working on that a little bit. Let's go to Dean Mashburn. Talk a little bit about COVID testing, and will it be available on campus?
Sure. We currently, the Tennessee Department of Health has advised us not to make testing mandatory for students to return back to campus. However, we are working with our local pediatrician that we contract with for student health services to try to get testing here on campus. So she believes that she's going to have some funds available, and if all goes well, we'll have that resource here with students. It looks like there may be a small cost, and we're trying to nail that down and how that would work. But the great part is, if we are able to get it here on campus, not only will it be easily accessible for students, but it will be one of the rapid response test rates. So students should get responses back within 15 to 20 minutes available to them in that regard.
Thank you, Dean Mashburn. A lot of questions all across education about testing and its importance. One of the challenges right now is really the length of time to get results. And as Dean Mashburn was indicating, what we would want is something that's very speedy, because if you can't get results in a couple days, then it's really not helpful, particularly in a campus community. So we're working very hard to do that, and hope and pray we'll have that ready to go very, very shortly. And we believe athletes will need to be tested as well. Mr. Mayfield, would you say a few words as our athletic director about testing in athletes? We have a lot of student athletes at Tennessee Wesleyan. Can you talk about testing and what's being discussed at that level?
Yeah, so currently the procedure that we're going to follow is we have to have a test provided to each student athlete 7 days. It has to be within a 7-day window before the first competition that occurs this fall. So currently, let's say our first competition is September the 5th. There's a 7-day window prior to that we have to have a test and receive a negative result within that window. It has to be a PCR test. It has to be from a certified lab. So we're working out those details currently to be able to get that test done for all of our fall student athletes.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Scott?
And just a point of clarification, as Donnie indicated, the test that we are hoping to get in the student health services will not meet the needs for the testing for athletics. Right. So in case that question comes up, we'll try to answer that in advance. So.
If our audience isn't aware, and I'm certainly not an expert, although I'm learning a lot about testing, there are different kinds of tests. There's a molecular test and an antigen test and different kinds. And we're learning every day about tests, and so are our physicians and scientists. So, but we'll make sure we have the right kind of tests at the right time. All are important in terms of determining as quickly as we can if we have somebody who needs some help or needs to be quarantined. Dean Mashburn, talk a little bit about move-in. I know we have some kind of a staggered move-in, and we had a couple questions about a move-in and how that was going to work.
Sure. So in the residence halls, new students as well as returning students should have got a newsletter earlier this week that outlines it, but a quick summary is we're encouraging our international students that live in the residence halls to return back to campus between now and August 2nd, with the intent that they will be quarantining for 14 days in the residence halls, and we'll work with them on meals and those type of things. The fall athletes, and those are members of the men and women's soccer, men and women's cross country, and volleyball, those teams will arrive on Sunday, August 9th, and then they will have a staggered schedule during those time periods based on their alphabet.
Okay.
And then also on the 13th of August, that's a Thursday, new students, all new students, transfers, as well as incoming first-year students will move into the halls, and they'll report directly with their halls, and then all the returning students will move in on Sunday, August 16th. Those times are staggered based on alphabets. We are asking that students as well as their guests wear masks anytime they're in the public areas of the residence halls, and we are limiting guests for helping with move-in to 2 individuals. We want to make sure we have a few folks in the residence halls, but also want families to be able to celebrate. This is a big day, particularly for new students moving in. But we're being very mindful about who's in the halls and how many folks, and so we can limit contact in the public areas for check-in. We are asking that only the residents come to the lobby of their particular building to check in with the RAs, pick up their key, and then the rest of their guests, the 2 guests, can help them move in from the cars into their particular halls. But the staggered schedule, we believe, will give us a little bit of flexibility and won't have everybody coming at 9 o'clock in the morning trying to get it all done. So.
All right, great, thank you. I've been doing this for over 30 years. I got to say, this is going to be the most exciting move-in we have ever had, and been through all kinds of them. But we've been waiting since March for him to come back, and the excitement will be palpable. The other thing I've mentioned, Dean Mashburn, maybe talk a little bit about the dining hall. We got a question about how food is going to work and any changes that have been put in place regarding that. Can you talk about, just summarize some of that, and certainly they'll see it when they arrive.
Sure. We are, for those returners that would know this, and even new that students that have visited, the dining hall is now spaced out, social distancing, 6 feet between each of the tables. As a result, we've then also are using the foyer outside the dining hall, as well as the Glenlow and the Sullins boardroom will allow us to accommodate faculty, staff, and students in the dining hall during the meal hours. Lunch, obviously, will be our biggest time as far as demand, because that's when the faculty and staff tend to visit, as well as some of the local community members that will come to campus. During that time, all the areas will be served. So going through the grill, going through the main entree areas, dessert bar, salad bar, all those will be served by a staff member in accordance with the CDC guidelines, as well as the state health department guidelines for the state of Tennessee. And we will have that. Students, for the first time, will be able to have to-go boxes in the dining hall, because we are mindful that some students will not want to eat there, but we'll want to make sure they're utilized in their meal plans. Buckets will operate the same way. We have social distance in chair as far as our seating capacity there. And again, things like utensils and all that will be distributed. They'll be wrapped and provided out individually to reduce the likelihood of other people contacting plates and utensils.
Very good, very good. Dr. Will Height, our academic vice president, who knows all things academics. We have an academic question, and that is, we do have an academic question. Where is it? Oh, here, about study abroad or trips. Will those be allowed in the fall?
Yeah, so one of the policies we put into place for the fall is that we're going to limit travel to make sure that we don't have individuals leaving and going far-flung and coming back. And so I would anticipate most student travel will also be limited. I have left an opportunity for faculty who might have an opportunity that's a once-in-a-lifetime sort of endeavor to apply for that trip to happen. We also have a similar situation for field trips and really wanting to be able to vet and make sure that on any trip that is allowed, that the students are have the same safety protocols in place that we've put into place on our campus to keep people safe. So the short answer is we have many limitations in place and anticipate very little travel in the fall, hoping to open that back up some in the spring, but it might be that we have a few trips or outings that could occur.
Very good. The viewers might be noticing that we have kind of different looking masks on. Mine keeps falling down. You're not supposed to adjust it, and I'm doing a terrible job of that. I'll just admit that. I need to tighten mine up, but I got a microphone in my hand, so I can't do that. But you may see that we have these masks. We've also purchased masks for all of our students and our faculty and staff, and so we're all wearing our Pride wear, and masks are required. I think as Dean Mashburn talked a little bit. Masks are required throughout the campus unless you're outside by yourself, in your office by yourself, or in your residence hall, or obviously eating. But otherwise, we want you to wear your mask all the time because it protects other people, protects our faculty, and our families, frankly. And so it's very important that we have everybody wear masks so we can have a good fall semester. One of the questions we have is a little bit about when or if and how would we go online? Should there be a time when we had to? Of course, we did that in March, and in 2 days, thanks to all the wonderful work our IT people have done and the gig speed that we have here, etc., that worked quite well. There were a few hiccups, but for the most part, very positive. Could you talk about that, Dr. Wilhite?
Absolutely. We are really excited to be bringing students back to campus, but we are going to be constantly vigilant to see what the situation is regarding the spread of COVID. And so we have a team, it's a COVID management team that meets regularly, and we will be monitoring a number of different factors to make sure that we're keeping everyone safe. Some of those factors would include the local numbers of active COVID cases. It would include the number of active COVID cases that might be on campus. One of the major things I think we'll be watching is if we're getting any sort of spread within the campus community. We'll also be watching orders from the governor's office of the state of Tennessee, obviously. It's been a really reassuring summer because we've had 2 programs that roll all summer long, dental hygiene and occupational therapy. And so those students and faculty have been in seat for many of their classes, and especially in the month of July, and have been interacting, wearing masks, and showing that the students can do what they need to do and the faculty can do what they need to do to keep everybody safe. And so it's been a good summer, and it's been reassuring. And so we hope that we will be able to stay in seat. But if we see that those numbers are trending in the wrong direction and we feel like we have to make a decision to keep our campus safe, we do have plans to move into a remote learning environment. So the faculty are being trained and being ready to manage the classes in a different way if we should have to go online.
Very good, thank you. One of the things that would help us a lot going into the fall is to have all of our students and faculty and staff, frankly, get a flu shot. It's going to get really confusing if we have folks with the flu, we don't know if they have the COVID virus, requiring folks to go into isolation, etc. So for the folks listening, make sure your students get flu shots as soon as they're available, and of course we'll be communicating that and working out potentially free flu shots. We do that for our faculty and staff, and we're going to figure out a way to do that for students as well. Or perhaps if they live if they live fairly close to the campus, perhaps they would do that at home with their physician, or however you might do that. But it'll be very confusing if people have the flu and then we're wondering, is that potentially the COVID virus as well? So it'd be very helpful if we do that, certainly. Question on here about refunds. Should we go online, Ms. Gail Harris? It's asking here about would we do refunds. It could be the questions a little bit about residence halls as well. some schools closed their residence halls in March and sent everyone home, closed their dining hall. We chose not to do that. We stayed open. But maybe talk a little bit about refunds and kind of how that works. And then certainly Dean Mashburn, you can talk a little bit about the residence halls and some of what you did there to really take care of our students through a really uncertain time through the spring, and how that worked out quite well. So, Gail, would you say a few words?
Yes, we expect that the fall, should we find the need to go online, would be very similar to the spring, and there would not be a refund issue whatsoever. We anticipated and worked through in the spring with residence halls and food services being available to those students, and Dean Mashburn will address that. So we feel like if we do find the need to go completely online, that we will keep those buildings open and those services available to those students, and in that case, there would be no refunds.
We, as Dean Mashburn will allude to, we have students from all over the world, and as much as 70 to 80 students from different parts of the world, and they're not all can easily get home if they need to, or don't have a place to go in the States. And so we take a real strong stand on making sure we take care of our folk and make sure they're okay, no matter what the circumstance. Could you say a few words, Dean Mashburn?
Yeah, as Dr. Wilhite alluded to, we have a crisis management team and now a COVID team as a subset of that to focus specifically on this. So one of the top priorities for our team when we came back from spring break in March was making the decision of whether we're going to move online and what that looked like. And our faculty responded well, and as you referenced, Dr. Knowles, our IT team to make that happen. But the main part that we decided with our residential students is there was a number of students that, for a multitude of reasons that you've summarized, couldn't go home. In some cases, it was they didn't have internet access. In some cases, the family wasn't at a point where they could support them. In many cases, the numbers were higher in their home areas than they were here. And then our international students, the uncertainty about going home and then returning in the fall. So we made the decision to keep our residence halls open. Of the 330 residents that we had on campus in the spring, just about 110, 115 of those students stayed here. Thanks to our partners with Aramark and with National, our facilities folks, we kept facilities clean, we kept food provided and serviced there. And then we've actually had about 40, 45 students that have been here all summer. And thanks to the work of Skip White and Dr. Bogo, and then the outpouring of support that we got from across the country, we collected about $7,000 that we used to help underwrite food for our summer school residents. Again, about 20 of that 45 were international students that stayed here. And then we had local churches and local businesses that came and fed our students Monday through Friday. And great home-cooked meals. There was a group just downstairs feeding the summer residents just a few minutes ago. So our top priority back in the spring, all summer, and as we go into the fall, has not only providing for the physical safety, but also the spiritual, the emotional, and the physical well-being of our students. And we've just been able to rally because of partners on campus and off campus to be able to do that. So we've been pleased. We've heard a lot of great comments from our students, families who had friends and family at other schools that didn't have that luxury and literally got an announcement they had to be out of the halls in a few hours, few days, and were left sort of scurrying. And so we were thankful that we can continue to serve our students in the capacity that we try to do on a daily basis. So.
Great, thank you. I know I'm putting you on the spot a lot, Dean Mashburn, but you're at the epicenter of some of these activities. The other one is our health services and our nurse practitioner that works there and helps our students every day. Talk a little bit about those services so parents will know kind of what will be here on a daily basis to assist, and the relationship with the physician as well.
Yeah, so we partner with a local pediatrician here in town who thankfully her two daughters went to school here, so she has an affinity for Wesleyan and is more than a partner. She is part of the Wesleyan family. So we have a nurse that's here. All of our students have access to the nurse. That's included in their in their student activity fees. So services and visits to the nurse are at no cost to the students. She will be open Monday through Friday, currently from 10 to 3. each of those days, and we're working to extend those hours based on her availability. So during that, she's able to do a multitude of tests, give flu shots, vaccinations, all those kind of things, along with the hope that we will be able to provide the COVID-19 testing here on campus along with that. So we've also partnered in Knoxville for the first time. We will be providing a health center run by Nicole Howard, who is also one of our faculty members in the nursing program. And that service will be at no cost to the students in the MOT program, as well as the nursing program. So we'll have designated hours each week that students can see them. So what we're asking is that students schedule an appointment, wear their mask into the health center, and they'll just wait outside on the front porch in one of the nice rocking chairs we provided until they're called back in. Again, we want to limit the traffic flow into the health center and be able to monitor those assessments. So that a student can walk in, schedule that appointment if they feel like they're running a temperature, if they're uncertain. And then along with the physical health, we also have partnered up with Humana to provide counseling to our students, again, no cost to them. So that will be more information about that. Should have been in the newsletter, it will be on the website, my portal. And then students also have an app that we partnered with, thanks to a couple people in Student Life doing some research. It's an online peer-to-peer, not our students to our students, but our students to another group of mental health counseling that is available to them 24 hours a day to address any of the issues they may go. So again, we're hoping that we can deal with the physical and mental health issues for our students through all of our services.
Very good. Thank you. Gail, could you talk a little bit? You've worked with our facilities team, and we're very fortunate to have a really good facilities team, and boy, has that paid off recently. But talk a little bit about this technology that we've put in, this filtering system to kill the COVID in these roughly 25, 26 buildings that we have as part of campus.
Yes, we partner and have for a number of years and are very fortunate to have National Management Resources as our facilities, groundskeeping, and if you're on our campus, you know what a wonderful job they do. They did a lot of research and were actually researching a couple of these products before COVID-19. One in particular is the iWave product that they installed in all buildings on campus within our heating and air. So we've already been experiencing that as they've gotten it installed this summer. But they're little units that go into each one of those units on campus, those HVAC units, and they use ion technology. I can't tell you, I'm not a scientist, exactly how it works.
Dr. Wilhite, do you want to play video? You are a scientist.
But I can tell you that it has been tested. We made the decision to put it in prior to knowing that it would be approved for COVID-19 because it also picks up all these other things. And we just felt so, we felt from our hearts that that's what we needed to do. We need to go ahead and put it in, make sure that we had everything available, and then found out as we were installing that it's been approved that it does kill the COVID-19. It kind of clumps it together, lets it be gathered up and collected within the filters. The other thing that our facilities have done is locate a product that provides 60 to 90-day protection once they apply it to surfaces. So it continues to kill viruses. They make sure they wipe it with the right things so that that product stays on the surface. But we're actually going to cut that time probably in half and every 30 days apply it. But doorknobs, anywhere that you may touch on a regular basis is getting cleaned constantly. Every day, bathrooms are cleaned within all of our facilities on a regular basis throughout the day. This facility we're in, Collins Campus Center, has someone who's here almost all day because we have things happening and students coming through. So all of those technologies are being implemented along with a couple of ultraviolet light therapy, I guess you would call it, that will be used in some of the facilities such as locker rooms and so forth, that they can put that technology in the area and within 2 or 3 hours it kills the viruses and so forth that are there. So we're very committed to being as safe and as disinfected, I guess, you would say, as we can be.
Well, I think just to underscore the housekeeping, how terrific our staff is, they've been certainly deep cleaning a variety of our buildings, but particularly bathrooms and all the high-touch places that we need to be particularly careful about, and they will continue to do that. And we'll increase that if necessary to ensure that our folks are safe as possible. We just don't take that lightly. So thank you for your good work and working with our facilities team. Lacey, I got a question for you. It is a non-COVID question, which I don't think I'm supposed to do. My colleagues told me I had to stay COVID-centric, but I'm not. I'm going to ask a little question. You help a lot of students as Associate Vice President for Financial Services, and you help them make this place affordable. Families out there always concerned about that. Could you talk a little bit about either some reminders or some suggestions or things that parents need to be doing now, or things that they might want to remember going into this calendar year or this academic year?
Oh, definitely. So I just want to first of all say that fall pre-bills will be going out actually in the mail tomorrow morning. So you should be getting that. It kind of outlines the fall schedule, fall housing charges, what your balance is or what your refund amount's going to be. If you have a hardship in your family, maybe somebody has lost their job, or things are just really different than what was reflected on FAFSA, which uses 2018 tax information, then please know, contact my office. There's some things that the federal government has given us the ability to do. So depending on your certain situation, we can look at it and see if we can adjust some income to maybe give you a little bit more financial support. Also, please know that we have a number of payment plans. We would love to work with you on a plan that is affordable and works for your family and your family situations. Because we do know that times are tough right now and every family situation is different. So please do not hesitate to reach out to my office at any time. We would love to work with you and explain some more options that you may have available, some additional financial aid that may be available, or just something that we're still missing in order to get you that final balance or final payment plan that works for you all.
Very good, thank you. All of us have heard more about quarantining and isolating than we ever want to hear in our lifetime ever again. But college campus is going to have to do that. I mean, that's just a sober reality of the situation. And we're ready for that. Dean Mashburn, talk a little bit about some of the steps that you have taken to get ready for that potential. We've had a few, not very many, thankfully. Some campuses had a lot. We've had just a few students who have tested positive. I'm not aware really of any, and if there are many, I'd be surprised, that have symptoms. They seem to deal with it quite well, but of course they can infect other people. So how will isolation and quarantine, we have a question about that, how will that work on campus, and what have you done to get ready for that?
Sure. So that process is going to start with our international students, as I referenced earlier. They'll come in and quarantine 14 days in their current room assignment where they are assigned for the fall. In most of the buildings, they're in individual bedrooms that have a shared bath, and so we're asking that whoever they share the bath with use the other end of the apartment if they have to do that. If they are a resident, let's say we get into the semester and we need to quarantine a student, students that live within the 3-hour parameter of campus, radius of campus, are going to be asked to go home and do that quarantining there so we can make sure they're being tended to and their needs are met, and we can reduce any kind of risk or spread here on campus. If a student is international or outside of that, we have 12 rooms in Keith Hall that are set aside that have private baths that the residents are able to then use, and we get them out of their particular room if they have a roommate. So that would only apply to the residents of Fowler or Keith Hall that would have to quarantine, because again, the other halls have private bedrooms that would meet the CDC guidelines with regards to quarantine. Should a student have to quarantine and stays in the residence halls, we will work with them and food service to make sure that we get meals delivered to them during that time period. So that time period, the way the process is right now, and it's changing. We're getting some word that students could be quarantined as few as 10 days, although the guidelines at this point we're waiting to get official word. The guidelines that we're working on are a 14-day period from the time that they get tested or they tested positive. So I'm working closely with Dr. Wilhite. We're asking that students, if they feel that they have come in contact with someone, close contact, as CDC is defining, not that they were in a general area or, the dining hall with somebody that ended up testing positive later, but they had close contact for an extended period of time. Those students, if they get in and get tested, what we're asking is they notify us, quarantine during that time period till those test results come back. In Tennessee right now, at least in our area, those are averaging anywhere from 7 to 11 days based on the students that we've talked to that have had their testing. So it's almost that 14-day period anyway. We will ask that they quarantine. At that point, I will then reach out to the faculty members that they are in classes with, notify the faculty that this student will be out of class. I will not disclose the rhyme and reason why they're out because of privacy, but we want to let faculty know that we're aware of it, and the student will be instructed to follow up with each of their faculty members to work out a plan, and Dr. Wilhite might discuss a little bit further about the online and how that will look and feel. I will also then reach out to, if they're a student athlete, we'll reach out to athletics, notify them again that a student may be missing. So we have a tracking system in place, a spreadsheet that will let us track from the time that we've been notified to the time they're quarantined or a negative test result comes back in, at which point they would then be permitted to come back and resume normal activities on campus. So it's a pretty robust system. And then our employees are being asked to reach out to Kyle Fulbright, the Director of Human Resources, to notify them because there's some different procedures that they have to do. But all students would notify me, and then we'll work directly with them on those procedures and the communication throughout campus.
One of the huge benefits of Tennessee Wesleyan or any small campus is the intimacy of this. So we're not talking 10 or 20,000 students and then another 5,000 faculty and staff and trying to sort all this out. But instead, with roughly 1,100 students and another 250 employees, I mean, we know each other. We can follow up with each other, and so it's a smaller community where we can isolate easier. All of that, just because the scale is very, very different. Dr. Wilhite, do you want to say a little bit about the kind of the online option, particularly in the case if somebody needs to be in isolation? And then we had a question, and you can take this, and Dean Mashburn can as well. We had a question just right now about book return, should if somebody need to go home. Now, we don't want them to go home, obviously. We want people to stay unless they're, just really ill and need some time away. But most of the students asymptomatic pretty much. And talk about quarantining and a little bit about the practical issue of returning books and any other kind of practical things related to that.
Sure. Well, I'll start by saying that the Tennessee Wesleyan academic experience is built around relationships between faculty and students, and relationships between students as they all learn as a community. So we're certainly excited to be back into that sort of environment where that type of learning takes place. And so the faculty understand that. Students need that kind of environment to really succeed at a place like Tennessee Wesleyan. But we also know that there's going to be a lot of extenuating circumstances this semester. So we've worked hard to develop over the summer a plan for academics that would allow faculty to hold those in-seat, community-based, really intensive instructional moments, but also allow students to join who might have to quarantine remotely. And so we're using the Microsoft Teams platform. We are a Microsoft campus, so all students have access to that, all faculty have access to it. And so students who would have to quarantine and have worked through Scott's office, they would be expected to join synchronously at the same time with the class that's in progress. We also know there may be students who are ill during the semester and who simply can't come to class. And so in those cases, we are recording those sessions, those synchronous sessions, so that our students will be able to go back and watch those later. But we have created, I think, a system of communication that will really emphasize the in-seat component of the classes, knowing that that's so important, and then also allow students to participate if they have to quarantine as well. I will say we have moved a few classes online over the summer, and we might move a few more online. We are giving faculty an option to petition to teach remotely if they fall into a high-risk group. I believe there was a question about students and whether or not students could take classes online. And so I'll go ahead and answer that as well. Again, we value that in-seat instructional opportunity, and we know that it's so important for students. We also know that some of our student population are at risk, or they live with or care for someone who's at risk. And we also know that we may have some students who can't abide by our policies for a medical reason, largely related to mask wearing. And so if we have students in those two categories, we want to make sure there's an opportunity for them to engage in an online fashion. So the expectation will be that they join us via Teams platform so that they can be a part of that learning community. That particular petition is almost developed, and we should be sending that out in the next few days. It'll be a fillable form, and it will go to advisors, and then it will go to my office. And again, really just allowing students a way to petition to take their courses online. We are really focused on making sure that students have the right opportunities to succeed. And we want to ultimately be able for them to do that. And so we have a couple of populations that in general will not be able to apply for this process. Athletes that are in season obviously are going to be interacting with other athletes. They're going to be participating, playing against other schools, things like that. And so it doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be remotely taking classes. Also made a decision about students who are residing in the residence halls in that community setting. And so those students would also be expected to be in seat. But there will be an opportunity there for students to apply if they fall into one of those high-risk groups. Scott, you want to talk a little bit about book returns?
Yes, I'm assuming the question is revolving around books that need to be returned. Should we go online or at the end of the semester? So although we may go online, that possibility, I'd be remiss to think that Dr. Wilhite and the faculty would want students to return their books right away. So we plan on...
We want them to read the books.
Not only
Once
have...
they're done reading and
Not only have books,
memorizing,
but
they
open
can
the
return
seal,
them.
correct. So, our partners at Follett are mindful of what's going on with the COVID situation. They worked closely with our students. Typically, students that rent textbooks have a deadline just after finals that they need to turn in the books to them. So when we went online and then eventually with the number of students that went home, Follett extended that deadline almost 80 days to work with students. So students had the opportunity to mail it back. Students were able to print off prepaid labels, ship it back at no cost to them, and then Follett worked with them. So depending on how students buy their books, purchase their books, whether that's new or online and digital formats, will all be driving factors of how that refund and return policy takes place. If a student simply withdraws from the institution, they'll be under the guidelines that is outlined by Follett at the time they purchase their books, because there are certain return policies that Follett has set out. But they will work with us. They've communicated with us, as our partners at Aramark have, that they're going to work and be flexible with us as we try to meet the needs with our students. So the book return refunds is one of those processes that we'll iron out depending on how this all shapes out throughout the semester.
Terrific. I knew you were a really important person here, Dean Mashburn, but I'm finding you are much more important than I was aware. Yes, Dr. Wilhite, another important person. The breadth of what that man knows is just incredible. Also, speaking of breadth, Dr. Wilhite.
Well, I just thought it was an opportunity to talk about what we've done in the classrooms to make sure that they're safe. If we want students to engage in that sort of environment, we wanted to make them safe. So we've just heard from Ms. Harris about all the things we've done across campus. Those have been employed in classrooms. So the long-acting disinfectant, the iWave technology. But we've also taken a look at all the classrooms and made sure that the desks or the tables were arranged in such a way that we have social distancing. We will have mask requirements. Faculty will be wearing masks as well as students. We do have some faculty that are going to require students to be able to see their face. Perhaps a student needs accommodation, or perhaps a teacher needs their students to be able to see their face. I just talked to one of our education faculty, and she said teaching phonics is nearly impossible if she can't show students how to teach phonics with their mouths. And so We have provided face shields for faculty in those cases and are simply asking them to maintain the social distancing with the face shield so that there can be that level of interaction. And so I just wanted to reiterate all the things that we're doing to try to keep faculty and staff and students safe in that environment, because that's of utmost importance to us.
You want to do that?
I think it's safe.
Change too.
Yeah, we have implemented an academic calendar change. The faculty approved taking the fall break off the calendar, so those 2 days will be instructional days. I believe that was the 15th and 16th of October. And so that break has been removed. Again, that's really about keeping students from going far away and then coming back to campus. And we also decided to move instruction to remote learning after Thanksgiving break. Again, trying to protect the faculty and the staff and the student population. And so faculty are aware of that and are beginning to think about how they wrap up that course in a remote way. But we thought that was a really good idea to keep our campus community safe as we really try to create the atmosphere in the classroom for learning.
Just another thought, if you could address Dr. Wilhite, of how in the classrooms you're spreading classes out across campus into some of the spaces we normally do not use for classrooms.
Right. So by spreading out chairs in classrooms, we lost some of our biggest classrooms on campus. We have pretty much set a cap of courses. Most of our courses are below the number of 20 to 25 anyway, including our general education courses. But we do have some courses that tend to be larger, and so we've capped those at a maximum of 40. And so we have no classes in the fall semester that will be over that number. We've also outfitted, or will be outfitting, some spaces that were typically used for other things. The space that we're in right here is the Event Center. We will be using this as 3 different classrooms, which gives us some more classroom space. We have outfitted other spaces on campus with technology that allows us to use that as a classroom, including our theater, which has not historically been one of the more conducive spaces on campus to hold classes. So those are some of the things that we've done to increase our classroom space and also social distance.
I've always been proud of the technology we have here, and we've got a great staff, and we've really added a lot of technology over the years. But one thing I'm really proud of is that we've used some of the federal money that's come here and more or state money that's coming to help with some of these efforts to add more technology to make sure students can distance more, and we can have smaller classrooms and et cetera, and outfit different. We have an eligibility question, Mr. Mayfield, but before we get to that, let me ask a question while we were talking about residence halls just a minute ago about Thanksgiving. With the change in the academic calendar, it prompted a question about, does this mean I have to leave and not come back at Thanksgiving if I live in the residence halls? We always encourage you to, if you can get home and get some turkey, to do so. However, we generally have you come back after that, and there's a period of time, usually through the first week in December, when you'd still be here. But Dean Mashburn, would you address that?
Yeah, so while we will go online immediately following Thanksgiving, the last day in seat will be the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. We still classes officially go through because of finals till December 9th. So the residence halls will remain open. We leave our halls open for fall break, Thanksgiving break, spring break, and Easter already. So even students that need to stay during Thanksgiving break and they don't want to travel, they're welcome to stay in the halls. There are no meal plans or meal service available during Thanksgiving or spring break. But students will be able to stay, and then we are also going to leave the residence halls open over Christmas break for our international students. Currently, we do not have food service, but we're hoping to partner with some of our local community folks to provide meals. But that, again, will only be open for the international students for the entire Christmas break, as opposed to them having to travel and then, again, deal with some of the visa issues and uncertainty that may exist when they return home. Should they go home, we will ask them when they return to do the same 14-day quarantine, or at least that's the plan as things currently sit.
That's the international students.
International students only, yes, sir. So the guidelines from CDC, I know that's one of the questions that we've dealt with some internationals. CDC guidelines do not suggest or require a quarantining of U.S. students. Only students that have been abroad. So our international students that have been here all summer, they don't have to worry about the quarantine. They've been here in the States. Or we have a few that are in places like Texas and Iowa that have been with some extended family, host families, and they would be exempt from the quarantining. So only if they're returning directly to campus from their home countries would they need to do the 14 days in August and then again in January.
Right.
And more information about the sign up for that process will get distributed out to the residents a little closer to time. Right now we just want to get them here, get them situated and settled, and we'll deal with Christmas as far as plans for housing after that. But
I think we've done an amazing job of working with folks. Big campuses, when the residence hall is closed, there's no flexibility. The door's shut, you got to go somewhere, to a hotel, wherever. We're very different. Again, the scale and our personal attention to students really came out this time. So proud of what we did, and it will this time as well. Folks are in need and whatnot. Dr. Will, how you?
Yeah, I was just going to say there's an academic component to that as well. So we want to leave the dorms open through Thanksgiving and after Thanksgiving for students who don't have access and really need to stay here because some of our students, so when they do go home, don't have the same level of internet service or perhaps don't have the technology that they have access to here. And so it's an academic resource too to keep those dorms open and allow students to stay.
Very good. Donnie, we get to the eligibility question. You deal with that issue all the time, but this is really unique because we lost in the spring. We ended the seasons of baseball and whatnot that was going on in the spring. So talk a little bit about if in the fall we start on time or about on time. There are some adjustments that have already been made. But if we start and let's say soccer or volleyball has to stop playing, talk about your interpretation of the eligibility options, requirements related to that. Do you lose eligibility for that season if you only played a few games, for example?
So, if you go back to the spring, we did get to play several games, with our spring sports. But we're unable to finish the season and go into a championship setting. So, to try to help out our student athletes, the NAIA decided to give back eligibility to those student athletes who are identified with the team, along with their semesters. Okay, so moving forward in the fall, we can't sit here and assume that would be the same case because we haven't got there yet. But based on how things unfolded in the spring, you would almost think there would be a similar pattern to that if it occurred in the fall.
Yeah.
But there's no answer to that question as of yet, simply because we haven't got to the point of getting back on the field and having a stoppage. But I'm sure that is something that's going to be discussed thoroughly once we get to the fall season, if it happens. But I would suspect, that it would be a similar situation, but there is no definitive answer as of now for the fall.
So those questions and those issues get resolved at the conference level or the national level, the national administration of NAIA.
That's a national
right,
level
and
answer.
they try to keep things consistent across all the conferences.
Correct.
And so we have to wait for their guidance with regard to that, and they make those rules. But eligibility is a real important thing to athletes, as we all know, as they try to have as many wonderful seasons as possible. But this, no question, was disruptive in the spring, and we're very hopeful that the fall won't be as disruptive, certainly. Well, great. I think we're coming to the end of our broadcast here, and I think it's time for some final thoughts. You can go anywhere you want with the final thoughts as I move down the line here. You're all getting nervous. I can see your foreheads. The sweat is, or as my wife says, that she doesn't sweat, she glistens. The glistening is beginning. So here's the question for you to at least consider is what are some things that you have found? They didn't know I was going to ask this question, by the way. What have you discovered about this institution through this really challenging times for all of higher education, for our nation, frankly for our world? But what have you discovered about this institution through this experience since March? And how is it meaningful to you? There's the big question. And then you can share any final thoughts you would like. And why don't we start with Lacey?
Of course. I would have to say that these past several months at Tennessee Wesleyan have never made me more proud to be a Bulldog than what I am of our campus family. We have said for forever that we are family oriented, and that has never been more true. The amount of time that we had to pivot to move online and to work remotely was very quick, happened rapidly, but we all adjusted and everything still flowed seamlessly. So I'm very proud of my Tennessee Wesleyan family.
Very good. Gail?
Oh, that was hard to follow. I would have to echo that. I just think the willingness, the teamwork, the care of our students was really the driver for everything we've done for the last few months. Quite frankly, it's been lonely on this campus without our students, and those of us who have been here and serving look forward to seeing their faces again. I think something that we've all learned is how nimble we are, how quickly we can turn on a dime when we really, sometimes you question whether you can do that, and just everyone from our IT department to our faculty, our staff, all of our contractors that work with us have just done everything they can to make the Bulldog experience the best that it can be.
Terrific. Dr. Wilhite?
Yeah, I would have to say that it really boils down to being reminded consistently of how much faculty at Tennessee Wesleyan care about their students and care about their success. From the pivot to online learning that happened in the spring to the way that faculty helped us to come and under students who were struggling in that period, to the summer where our faculty are working diligently to figure out how they operate their classes in different environments and different structures, and considering hybrid options to allow us to social distance a little more. And I just am very proud of the faculty of Tennessee Wesleyan for showing their true colors, and that those true colors are certainly that they want students at Tennessee Wesleyan to succeed.
Right. Dean Mashburn?
Yeah, I think this being my fourth institution in a professional level, and Dr. Knowles, you and I have had this discussion many times, is one of the things that's probably the biggest blessing for us is our students and their families. Our families during this time could have gone in a million directions on how they thought we should have handled things or the way we did handle things. And what we've got has been nothing but cooperation, appreciation. Several of us have received notes throughout the time, everything from having to go online to do virtual orientations to how we kept halls open. And so I think it's nice to be able to look back and you and I had this conversation a couple of days ago. What would it have been like if we'd have been at some other places, and how would this have handled? And as challenging as it's been for all of us, and how staff and faculty have rolled up their sleeves to make things happen, the students did the same thing. We went online for classes, moving out of halls, signing up for the residence halls for the next year, staying engaged with SGA and chapels. So it's a testament to the students that we recruit and their commitment to the Bulldog family and the pride that they have in the institution. So I always knew it was there. It was just reiterated and reinforced over the last few months.
Amen. Donnie, what about you?
From an athletic side of things, academic side, it's been one of the greatest challenges that we've faced at this institution and across the nation. Trying to make decisions, trying to create a safe environment moving forward. So the challenge of this whole ordeal, one, it can be tiresome, but I think the staff here's done a great job pushing through, putting together a great plan through your guidance. We've got a lot of great feedback on the plan that we put together to move forward. So the challenge of this, has been one piece, but also, cherishing day-to-day activities. I think we take for granted everything that occurred prior to March 12th. You know, and when that hit, when that afternoon hit, and we found out that we were, you know, one, shutting down athletics, and then we found out that we were having to move to an online format, you missed just those little details of your everyday life. And, you know, we're still searching to get some of those things back. And I think as a group, as a community, if we follow the guidelines and we do the right things together, you know, at the end of this, you know, we're going to look at as a group, we can do anything if we do it together. So wear the masks, wash your hands, so we can get back to those everyday experiences that I miss dearly, such as just turning the television on and watching a game.
Amen.
When you find yourself on July the 4th jumping up and down for Joy Chestnut to down that last hot dog, you know
That's a
you are missing a piece of
Is
a
that even technically a sport?
Yes,
Hot
according to
dog eating.
ESPN.
In my family, that's just living. So, that's not even a sport.
The main way.
I just echo what you've all said. I think I have always enjoyed working with students in a 30-plus year career, but it can be tiring at times. I don't think I'll ever say that again, to be honest. We had a day this past, I forget when it was, maybe it was in mid-July, where we had a summer camp here, and just to hear voices on the campus, and I mean, we've been here every day, but to finally have some young people here, you realize how they charge you up, and it just, you realize what a blessing it is to work in higher education, and what great jobs we have, and what a great staff and team we have. I think we work together well, and we kept a positive attitude, we really did, because we need to, and because we have a lot of blessings, and we need to not forget that. We're going to get through this. We're going to be more compassionate. We're going to hug each other's necks a little bit more, maybe, and be a little kinder and a little more compassionate, I think, because we'll just cherish our friends and our students and everybody a lot more when we get through this. But we really appreciate you joining us. We're here every day, just about, and in our offices. We're fully populated, getting ready for every task that we can think of to make sure that this is going to be a safe environment. Because we love what we do, and we love working with students. It's the joy of our life, a labor of love, and we'll be knee-deep in it very soon, and can't wait for folks to come back. We're all available. The website's a good place to go, of course. All of our numbers are there, so please reach out to us if you got any questions or any concerns, email, text, whatever it might be. So, Dean Mashburn, do you have something?
Yeah, just a closing, two quick things. One of the things that we've got a lot of positive feedback has been our communication throughout the summer. And so before we get off the air, I want to make sure we publicly thank our marketing team. They've had to really rally to do things from putting stuff together on campus, newsletters, emails, town halls, videos, I mean, all sorts of things. So, and they, behind the scenes, have made this happen tonight. So I want to just make sure we thank them. But Dr. Wilhite alluded to this, and a couple of us already have too, but the key is we get back to celebrate the small things and appreciate the day-to-day. Rest on all of us when we come back together. And as inconvenient as these masks may be, as frustrating as it may be that we can't put 10 around the table in the dining hall, or we can't have guests in the residence halls overnight, for us to be able to come back together as a community and enjoy the smaller things, class together, hanging around and shooting pool, watching ball games, things like wearing the mask, the social distancing, the communicating with one another are just critical. So we just ask that as you guys come back to campus that you just have that mindset to be a part of a contributing member to campus, so we can all be back together and enjoy a full semester. So whether you're at Wesleyan or you're a high school student or at a community college back in the fall, if you go back in our spring and remember what all we felt we lost and we're gone from, that in itself should be motivation for us to sort of do the things we need to do to open back up safely and responsibly. So.
Thank you. Well said. Dean Mashburn, well said. We're in this together. We got to take care of each other, and that means obviously our students and everybody. And we can't do it without your eager for you to be back, as we've said umpteen times. And we hope what little summer you have left, you enjoy. For students watching, and certainly parents, will be right here if you got any questions. And look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.